Hi all, my name is Roberto Velasco. As you know, the topic of this talk is securing RESTful services with Spring, HATEOAS, and HDIV. So just a short overview of my background. I have been working as software architect since 2004. Okay, so my experience is very related to software development and software architecture. In addition to that, I have worked in software security since 2001. Okay, I have been working in security companies and also working in open source projects such as HDIV security open source project. So first of all, talk about which is the subject of this talk. Okay. We are not talking about traditional security things such as authentication and access control. Okay, we want to try to implement a different approach. Okay, we want to automate security. Okay, so in that case, we are going to talk about security automation and security by design approach. Okay. Because even if the first part is interesting and I would advise to use it, the problem is that we depend on people. Okay, so the experience of the last 15 or 20 years is that in the end we have vulnerable applications, right? So even if we try to explain which are the best practice and so on, it doesn't work in practice. So we would like to add an additional feature, an additional approach to complement the security that we can implement by hand, that it's interesting and it's mandatory, and try to add an extra layer for that. Okay. So as you can see, we have 4 points in the presentation. First of all, we will talk about the current status of API security from our perspective. Our idea or our evaluation of this status is not very good. We consider that it's not good. More talking about API, so we will talk about why is the current status. Afterwards, we will go deeper in the solution or the solution that we are proposing. And finally, we will show you an implementation approach that implements the ideas that we have shown before. Okay. So first of all, an overview of API's status. Okay, as you know, APIs currently are everywhere. Okay, we are using APIs now for everything, for native mobile applications as well as for client MVC web applications that use APIs. Okay, this is new because in the past we used server-side MVC approach where we didn't use APIs, and currently we are using APIs for everything. Okay. So what about the security in this new scenario? Okay, let's see a demo to see what kind of vulnerabilities we can find in this kind of scenarios. Okay. So a simple demo about a native mobile application. In that case, it's an Android native mobile application. Okay. Where we are going to use a proxy in order to implement an attack. Okay, we are using a sub proxy that probably most of you know about it. We configure the proxy, so the mobile phone is going to browse this server, or it's going to access the server through the proxy. Okay, so we are able to intercept the calls and change whatever we want. Okay. So in that case, we have changed the parameter of the account number. Okay, we are going to do it. The proxy intercept the request. And the attack is successful. Vale? So we are able to change the request to the server. The same thing that we are doing in web architectures, we can do as well in native mobile applications. Okay, so this is an example of this kind of vulnerabilities that we can find in this new scenario of mobile applications. Okay. The all new things. Why the all new things? Because we consider that many of the issues that we can find when we develop APIs almost are the same that we are seeing before. Okay, I am talking about the server-side part. Okay, of the API. I mean, we are talking about OWASP top 10 basically and things like that. Okay. But the situation is even worse because in that case, we are exposing more business logic in the client side. I mean, we have controllers. If we are using, for instance, an Angular architecture, we have controllers in the client side. We have business logic in the client side. So programmers that maybe don't know about security, they implement these security features inside this client side. So I think that we are more exposed than we were in a server-side MVC approach. Okay, some data about which is the status of security. This data comes from White Hat Security. It's one of the most important security companies worldwide. And they say that almost all applications, in that case 86, has some kind of vulnerabilities. Okay, if we talk about the APIs, probably the situation is worse than that. Okay, it's because people don't know about it, and the business logic that we have in the client side is higher than we have in server-side MVC. Okay. So our perspective is not at least good enough about which is the security level that we have in APIs. Okay, so we will analyze now which are the reasons from our perspective, which are the reasons that generate this situation. Okay. First of all, we would like to organize the security issues in two families. I think that is an interesting way to organize the security problems. Okay. Usually, when we are talking about security, we just talk about bugs. That is the thing that we talk. For instance, SQL injection we can consider as a bug, okay, as something that in the API or a programmer is not using the API properly. Okay, it's something that you go to a line and you can fix it. Okay, it's something very easy to understand. But there are a lot of issues that is not a bug. It's more complex. Okay, we are talking about architecture design flaws, okay, design flaws. In that case, we have an extra problem that we don't have tools to detect these kind of issues, okay? We have tools, probably most of you are using application security testing tools. How many of you, for instance, are using these kind of solutions, such as Fortify or AppScan? Okay, I suppose that you are detecting the first ones. But what about the second ones? You cannot buy the tool. Yes, we need people for that. Okay, we need people for that, and it's more complex to solve it, because in many cases maybe you don't have to fix one line. We are talking about 500 lines. Okay, and you have to find a solution that is more close to architecture rather than a bug that you have in a specific line, right? So I think it's very interesting to see security from those perspectives. That we have two kind of issues. And we are going to analyze why we have problems using this organization or this kind of bugs or this kind of security issues. Okay, as reference, that is very interesting. When we talk about design flaws, we don't have too much reference. Okay, this one is a new one that has been created by companies such as Google or Cigital. Okay, that they have defined a top 10 of security design flaws. Okay, that it's interesting to have like it's like similar to the OWASP top 10, but in that case related to design flaws. Okay, it's very interesting to review. We don't have time to review it today, but I think that if you have time, it's interesting to review it. Okay, let's go talk about the reasons. Okay. First of all, I consider personally that the most important reason is that the technology that we are using to develop the applications, or in that case APIs, don't protect the application by default. I mean, in practice, all the security depends on people, okay? Because they don't implement many of the security features that we require, okay? There are differences between technologies. There are some of them that have started solving some issues. There are some frameworks that have solved, for instance, cross-site scripting, because they are writing the output in a standard way that solves these kind of issues. But basically, in many of the most used solutions, we have this problem. Okay, by default, they don't solve the issue. Okay, and of course, they don't solve also many of the bugs. There are, of course, some libraries that generate less bugs. For instance, if you use Hibernate to that data access, probably you will have less SQL injection problems because the API use by default a more secure approach. Okay, if you are using JDBC directly, probably you have more issues of this kind. Okay. So basically, as I am saying, security in the end depends on people. Okay, so we consider that this approach is not good enough, and it's one of the reasons that we have problems. Okay. But I would like to talk also about the alternatives that we have in the cybersecurity world. Okay, we have been talking about the development perspective, but what about the security providers? I mean, we have cybersecurity providers that they are creating products to secure applications. Okay, so first of all, we have an application security testing category that most of you know about it, and we think it's very interesting to use them. Okay, to detect bugs. But we have to understand that they just detect bugs. So if someone thinks that with one application security testing tool, everything is covered, it's not true. And probably most of you know about it. I mean, we have to complement with people. It means money. We need a lot of money to test these, the issues that they are not detected by application security testing tools. Okay, but it's very interesting. And I think that we have improved a lot in these kind of tools. So I think that it's a good idea to use this kind of tools. Okay. There is also an alternative or a complement that it's very used as well. I don't know how many people know about them. They are WAFs, or web application firewalls. In that case, we are talking about a product that is not for development. Okay, it's a product that we deploy in production. Okay, so in that case, by default, these kind of solutions try to protect from bugs, okay, from bugs such as SQL injection, and also try to protect from some design flows, okay, not all, but some of them, okay, because they can control the HTTP traffic, okay, of our applications. Sounds good. If you read some papers of WAF, sounds good, because it seems that you put in front of your web app and it works. But there are some issues that they are not public, or at least in the marketing information, that it's very interesting to know about it. Okay, if you have some experience with this kind of products, probably you will see false positives. Okay, it means that this kind of product detects as attacks a legal request. Okay, so it's a very important issue, because in many cases we are not allowing the access to real users. Okay, so we have a problem. I mean, in many clients I have seen that these kind of products, they are turned off. They are not activated. They are working. They log the attacks, but they are not actually stopping the request. Okay, because the advantages and disadvantages, in the end, it's not a good solution. Okay, but it's interesting to know also about them and to evaluate if they are appropriate for your needs. Okay. So as summary, we can see that foundational software providers don't solve the problem currently. Some of them, they are improving, and there are some differences, but in practice it's not totally solved. And in the case of the products that are provided by security providers, we can see that application security tools are interesting to use. And in the case of WAF, I cannot say the same. Okay, it's interesting to analyze them, but in practice, they present very important issues, and it's not easy to use them. Okay. Okay, once we have reviewed the reasons that we consider that are generating unsecure applications, we will talk now about the solution. What can be a solution in this scenario? Okay, what can we do in this situation? Okay. First of all, I consider that different problems require different solutions. Okay, when we talk about bugs, we can apply some ideas that they don't work in to solve design flows, okay? Because they are very different. In a design flow, we are talking about a very complex issue, and in the case of bugs, it's basically we can also implement some static analyze tool that can detect the issue in the source code, okay? So it's very different, okay? So first of all, let's talk about what could be the solution for design flows, okay? By default, the current approach is that we have everything open, okay? And programmers or developers has to implement security validations, okay? This is the default approach that we are using, okay? The approach that we propose is the opposite, where the server defines what is allowed, and by default everything is closed. Okay, we limit what are the actions that that clients can do, and if you want, you can open them manually. Okay, if we want to open open this restriction, if we want to have more freedom to do whatever we want, we can do it. But by default, everything is closed. Okay, we consider that this approach it's the best one for to solve these kind of issues. Okay. So basically, in that case, we need a requirement that is that the server has to define what is allowed. Okay. So within APIs, a possible solution is to use hypermedia for that. Probably, if you have read about hypermedia, you have read that it's a good solution for to have a decoupled architecture. It's a good solution to discover the API because you can browse the API. But what about security? Okay, what about security? I think it's interesting principle that within hypermedia, you start with a starting URL. And after that, you browse the website, okay? But you browse the website with the API offered by the server, okay? We don't have URLs in the client side, okay? It's the server who is telling you what can you use, okay? So sounds good for security, okay? We have some formal approach to define what can we do in a server, okay? And in practice, it's within REST, okay? I know that most of you and myself also, we haven't implemented HATEOAS in many cases. We talk about REST, but we don't implement HATEOAS. I think this is common. But if we analyze why, and if we analyze which are the requirements that we have, we will see that security is one of the advantages that we can get from hypermedia, okay? Because if we want secure application, it requires a lot of money. And using hypermedia, we have some advantage that we are going to analyze now, okay? So in order to define which is allowed, hypermedia can help us, okay? But it's not enough. It's not enough, okay? Because hypermedia define what is allowed in that server, okay? It's offering which is the API that has published by the server. It's important to know that we are talking about dynamic APIs. And it's important to see that. I mean, if I am an authenticated user, the URLs that I can access or the form contents that I can access depends on the roles that I have. Depends on the real-time situation of the server. Okay, we are not talking about a static documentation of an API. Okay, we are talking about real-time definition of what can I do, okay? For instance, if I am in a transaction, a payment transaction, depends on the situation in that payment transaction. I can have access to some URLs or not, okay? So we have to see also as a real-time and not a static definition, okay? But as I am saying, hypermedia by default don't apply any validation. Their approach is that you have some tools to define which is allowed in that server. You have different hypermedia formats for that, such as HAL, for instance. But by default, these kind of libraries, if you see some HATEOAS library, they don't apply any validation. You just publish. The clients can consume or not, can use as you are defining or not. This is another problem, interesting problem, that maybe you are using HATEOAS and your clients, they are not HATEOAS because they can do whatever they want if we don't do that in the server side, okay? So it's interesting that to have security, first, it's interesting to define what is allowed, but afterwards, we have to validate if the client is respecting this contract, okay? So we need an extra additional element, okay? In that case, HDIV is the element that can do it, okay? So till now, we have been doing it in server-side MVC frameworks, such as Spring MVC, and now we are adding this feature on top of HATEOAS, okay? Because in practice, the difference between HATEOAS and server-side MVC is not too much, okay? Because basically, we are browsing a website. We get links, and we get forms, okay? So if we are talking about real-time forms, we have to know which are the fields that I can see, which are the values that I can use. So it's very similar if we use a HATEOAS approach, okay? So what are the security features that are offered by HDIV, okay? First of all, we apply integrity checks to all the read-only data, which is read-only data. Everything except in text fields, basically, okay? Links and the elements that we have in for fields, except in text fields, they are read-only data that the client can select, can use, but they shouldn't change it, but they can do it. We have saw in the previous demo that they can do it. So the first rule in security is that don't trust on the client, okay? So we have, with using HATEOAS and using HDIV, we can validate by default between 90–95% of the data, because when we are browsing an API, most of the data is read-only data, okay? And additionally to that, regarding editable data, we apply as well validations, okay? We can apply whitelist validation and blacklist validation. It means that with some simple rule, we can apply, for instance, a specific whitelist to all the text fields in my application, okay? I don't have to go to each field in each screen, okay? We can do it in the whole application, okay? And integrate in the case that, imagine that the user writes a value that is not allowed, we can show the error in the client side, okay? We can report the error to the client side, and the client side can overcome the situation, okay? Can show the error in the client side, okay? So basically, this is the approach that we are talking about, okay? HATEOAS, on top of that, use HDIV to implement a different kind of validation using the HATEOAS definition that we have sent to the client, okay? So we have to control in real time what we send to the client, and with this information, we can validate incoming requests, okay? And everything works in real time. We are not learning anything, okay? Okay, regarding bugs, in that case, we have said that we need some detection mechanism, okay? Frameworks are improving. Some of the bugs, they are solving some of the bugs, but not all the bugs, okay? So I think that it's a good approach to have some detection mechanism to detect the issues. Okay, so we can use some AS tool, okay, such as we have mentioned, okay? But we can have another problem, mainly if we are using AS tools after the development. If you have used some AS tools after the development, probably you will see 1,000 bugs, okay? And it requires a lot of work to solve these bugs, okay? So it's like all the time we are detecting and solving issues, okay? So we never finish, okay? So it's a lot of work. So even if the detection is interesting, we think that we can automate a bit more, okay? We can do more in that field, okay? So one of the possible solutions is that work together, okay? Work together between detection and the input validation part. Okay. For instance, if we know that we are already validating a parameter or a link because we are applying integrity checks, so we know that it's 100% secure now and in 20 years, because the algorithm it's very simple. We know that even if this parameter is vulnerable to SQL injection, in practice we are not vulnerable. Okay, so if we combine both ideas, we can pass from 1,000 issues to 20 issues. Okay, if we are using some strict whitelist validation, maybe these 20 issues, even we have 5 or we have 4. Okay, so the combination between input validation part and the detection part, it's a very interesting idea. Okay, actually there is a new category within Gartner that I don't know if you know about it. It's RASP. Do you know about it? Till now we had AST and WAF. Okay, AST for development and WAF for production. Okay, RASP is an evolution of AST. Okay, it's detection and protection of the detected issues. Okay, it's an evolution of that. So I think it's an interesting topic to reduce the work that we have to do once we have detected issues. Okay, we can combine both ideas in the same solution. Okay, so basically, which is the task that is implemented by HDIV? Regarding the bugs that we have detected in read-only data, okay, in data that we are validating, we don't do anything. Okay, if we know that we are validating a data, even if we have the vulnerability in the code, doesn't matter. It's not going to work. Okay, because we are validating already. Okay, and regarding the rest of the data, we can apply a whitelist validation to this data. Okay, in real time, we can define a strict validation that does not allow an attack against this kind of data. Okay, and additionally, as I have said, we can show the error in the screen. Okay, thanks to the integration that we can report the error to the client side, and we can show the error inside the client application. Okay, such as Angular or Android. Okay. Okay, so finally, once we have explained the architecture, we have explained the principal idea of the architecture, but we have a problem. We have an issue, another issue. If we analyze the HATEOAS implementation in Java, we will see that there are two of them that are the most used implementation. One is Spring HATEOAS, and the second one is JAX RS. Okay, but Spring HATEOAS probably is the most common or the most used solution. Okay, so Spring HATEOAS use HAL as a hypermedia format, and the support of HAL is limited to links. Okay, so we can formalize link interactions, but when we talk about other kind of interactions, such as forms, okay, they don't define a very strict definition of what a form is. Okay, they give you the URL of the form, okay, the URL to implement the submit, but you don't know which are the parameters of this form. You don't know the allowed method, the HDIV method. You don't know the possible values for each field. Okay, so we are not defining the real contract that we are offering to the client side. That is something that most of you know, if probably you have worked with HTML before. So you know that with HTML, it's a complete definition. It's the best, probably one of the best hypermedia implementations where you have links and you have the complete definition of the form, including the method and the fields and the possible values for each field. Okay, this information is necessary to implement security. Without that, it's very difficult to implement security. Okay. So yeah, I was talking about that. So as I have said, we have support for links, but we don't have support for forms. Okay. Good news. It seems that it's improving. So we have created a pull request, working also with other people that is interested in that subject, such as Dietrich Schalten. Okay. And we have created, HDIV team has created a pull request to include form support within Spring HATEOAS, okay? So this work has been done with Jet Resultant, the collaboration also of Mike Amundsen, okay? And the collaboration of also of Oliver Gerke, okay? It's not finished yet. We are working now in the pull request, but it seems that it's going to be approved, and there is interest from Pivotal. And the supported hypermedia formats that we want to include in this new support is maintain the support that we have currently for HAL. I mean, we are going to use HAL for links. Probably HAL is the most used hypermedia format right now, so I think it's a good idea to use HAL to maintain the HAL support for links. And regarding forms, we want to create a standardized API to support different output formats. Okay, there are different hypermedia formats that support forms. For instance, HAL forms, Siren, and of course HTML. Okay, so the idea is that to add an API and a standardized API within Spring HATEOAS, okay, to support forms. Okay, and ideally, we want to let open the format that you are using. Imagine that you want to use HTML because you need that. Okay, you can use it. The definition of the form is almost the same. It's not the same in all the cases because maybe we have some fields that just are required by some specific format. But depending the case, we can use the same API. Okay, so basically we have an additional definition of the form that the clients they are going to use. Okay, so the clients in that case request the form composition, and they use it to create the graphical user interface or whatever they want. Okay, so the idea is to let open the format that we are using for forms, but the most important one is that we want to add support for forms because it's not enough, mainly for security, it's not enough if we just control links, because some of the most critical transactions are implemented in forms, so we need to define formally. Okay. So let's go to see an example of how it works. Okay. We have some code here. In the first part, basically we are creating the link of the submit. Okay, of the submit of the form. And in the second part, we are defining a bin that is used by the transfer controller class, okay? And using annotations, in that case, this is an approach created by Dietrich. Using annotations, we are defining the form composition, okay? In that case, we have used the select annotation, okay, to define the possible values for a specific field, okay? And we have used the input annotation. That it means that we are defining a text field. Okay, so using this metadata, we can render afterwards the format that we want. Okay, we can render HAL form, we can render HTML, whatever. Okay, so that's the idea. We are in the server side. We are defining formally which is the composition of the form. Okay, that is something that nowadays, even if using HATEOAS, many people is not doing. I mean, you have maybe some static definition of static documentation, but you don't define which are the specific fields for this user, okay? Because maybe this user just can update some of the fields of the form, okay? Or maybe the values that they can use are different from another user, okay? So if the form definition is the same, it's good enough. But if the form definition is dynamic, we need to define in a different way. Okay, so basically we are defining the form composition and sending this definition to the client in JSON format. Okay, so let's see an example of this format. In that case, we can see an example of a form. Okay, where we define the method, the HDIV method. Okay. And some fields that one of them is from account, where we can see the two account numbers that we can use. Okay, And in that case, it's a field that it's read-only true, okay? It means that we cannot change this value in the client side, okay? The client is limited to use just those values, but not other value, okay? And there are, of course, other fields that are text fields, okay? Such as, for instance, to account and description, okay? So basically, it's not very different if we compare that we did in HTML, where we define the composition of a form, okay? We need a formal definition in the server side, and it must be dynamic. It must be dynamic, it's not static. Okay, static is to know about the method. What's the goal of this method? Okay, it's fine. But if you want to use it, and you want to implement security, you want to know the specific fields for each user and specific values for each user. Okay? Otherwise, it's very difficult to implement security by design, and you will need to implement custom validations per each method. Okay, so we are in the same situation from 10 years ago. Okay, so in that case, with this approach, we can define formally the form definition, and we can implement validations. Without this formal definition of a form, it's impossible to validate this kind of interactions. Okay, and we can see on the left the graphical user interface in that case of that form. Okay. Okay, let's see an example about how it works in practice. Okay, so we will see an example of a Angular application. Okay, in that case, it's an Angular application using Spring HATEOAS. Okay, so we log in the application, and we can see the links offered by the server. Okay. So we are going to implement a transfer. Okay, we get the links from the server, and we have a rel that is make transfer. Okay, it's the rel to implement the submit. Okay, in that case, it's important to see that. Okay, the rel is the URL to get the form definition. Okay, this is an HAL standard where you can use the rel to get the form definition. Originally, it's used mostly to static documentation. Okay, but we have used this idea to have dynamic form definitions. Okay, so using this standard way to document an action, okay, that you can do, we are documenting the form composition. Okay, so basically the client is going to invoke this URL, okay, to get the form definition and implement the form using this data. So we make the request and we get the form. Okay, in that case, we are using HAL forms. And inside this HAL form definition, we can see all the files, all the properties that are included in the form. Okay. Okay, so we can see the name, if the field is read-only or not, and the values, the possible values of the field. Okay. In that case, we are using static values that we have got from the server, but we have also added an additional feature. Well, it's a proposal for the specification, and Mike Amundsen, it seems that he's agreed on that we can use as well. We can send a URL to the client to get the possible values. Okay, so it's more dynamic. You can do, imagine you have another additional server to get this data, so you can do it more flexible, but you have to define which is the source of this data. Okay, We cannot allow the client to create the URL by itself. Okay? If we allow the client to create the URL, it's impossible to create generic validations because we don't know about it. Okay? It requires custom validation in all the cases. Okay? Okay, so we have rendered the form using this data. And it works, okay? We haven't done anything illegal, so it works. So now, let's implement an attack, okay? We are going to change the client side. Okay, we are going to change the value from account. We know the account number from some of our friends, so we are going to change the value. We try it, and it doesn't work, okay? Because we have HDIV validating using the metadata that we have created previously, okay? So all the requests from the client side are controlled by HDIV, okay? And in the response, we can see which are the values of this attack, okay? We can know which is the specific attack type, okay? And to finish the demo, no, I have moved, sorry. Okay, we have done the attack. Okay, and to finish the demo, now we are going to try another common attack that is an SQL injection attack in a text field, okay? We implement the attack, and it doesn't work, okay? The validations, the whitelist and blacklist validation that we have defined at server side is working, okay? So once we have a read-only false field, we can apply by default all the validation that we have at server side, okay? So we don't have to define a specific validation for each field, okay? So it's a bit easier to control the input validation of the application, okay? Okay, to summarize the presentation, first of all, I will say that Hypermedia offers an excellent foundation to cover security by design, okay? That if you browse the internet, it's something that you don't find. I have seen some examples in some books because they talk about random URLs that the end users maybe don't know about them, so they can access some action that they are not allowed, okay? But it's not easy to find them, okay? And many people that, I agree that you need to implement more work if you use Hypermedia, right? It's easier if you let the programmers doing whatever they want. They can create the URLs, they can send any kind of value, it's fine, it's fine. But if the requirement is just a graphical user interface, okay? If the requirement includes security, the investment in Hypermedia, I consider that it's a good investment, or at least it's a subject that you must consider, okay? It's an advantage to implement Hypermedia, okay? Additionally, it can help to automate the protection of detected security bugs, okay? When we have 1,000 bugs to solve, if we correlate the bugs, if we correlate the bugs with the validation that we are implementing, actually we can reduce the number of bugs that we have to solve, at least in the short term, okay? afterwards it's advisable to fix everything, okay? And if you have the option to use application security testing tools from the beginning, it's fine, okay? It's the best approach. But in many cases, it's not the case, okay? We analyze the application afterwards, so we have 1,000 bugs to solve, okay? So if we have a security by design approach to validate incoming requests, we can use these tools to reduce the cost to solve bugs, okay? So it's a very interesting approach that we can use. Okay, additionally, as I have said, we need a hypermedia format that covers 100% of interactions, okay? We have this format, okay? There are formats for that. We have Siren, we have half-orbs, we have different formats. Unfortunately, we don't have yet inside the Spring HATEOAS, okay? Fortunately, we are working on, okay? And I hope that they will be ready maybe in 1 month or less, okay? Because now I think that we have a commitment from all the parts, and the half-orbs specification is going to change for that, okay? We are going to include which are the source of the possible values for each field using the static definition in the server side and the dynamic definition using URLs. So that's what we need, basically. So they are going to include that. They agree with that. And I hope that it will be ready in less than a month, okay? And I think that it's a great advantage because even if we have different hypermedia formats available, we need as well a standard library for that. I mean, we don't want an utility from one guy that they have implemented it, and if we have the support from a Spring community and the implementation offered by Spring, I think it's a great addition to the hypermedia wall. And I think that it's very interesting to start talking about security and hypermedia. Because till now, people say, why I have to use hypermedia? I have to work more. Yeah, if you don't do security, probably maybe you don't work, you work less. But if you have to implement security, I think it's an interesting point to take into account, okay? That security starts from the control of the server side. That's in all cases, because there are also some solutions that work, that it's called security by, I mean, they try to solve the problems from the client side, I mean, making more difficult to make attacks, but it's not the solution, because it could be less or more complex, but the solution starts controlling everything from the server side, okay? There is no other solution, okay? So if you implement a HDIV principle and security by design validation in the server side, you will have secure APIs for any kind of clients, okay? And basically, we are requesting to developers to use the default programming model offered by Spring HATEOAS. We are not requesting too much. I mean, I think it's a standard. We are requesting basically to use a standard way to implement REST services and to implement the whole REST specification, because the requirement, if we talk about REST, we should do that. Okay, officially REST includes hypermedia, as you know, so it should be inside our code if we say that we are using hypermedia, okay? But I think that this is not the reason to use hypermedia. You need some real reason to use it. If you don't have any advantage, I wouldn't use it, even if the specification says that you have to use it. Because I think that first of all we have to explain why, okay? Why we need this feature. But I think that it's very interesting to take into account. Okay. Additionally, the combination of HATEOAS, the formal definition of APIs with security solutions that automate the implementation of this validation make possible the automation of many security tasks. All the security tasks? No. Not all the security tasks. Maybe we have to encrypt some data in the database. We have to implement different kind of validations. But we are talking about a huge number of validations. Okay? We are talking about a huge work that we can automate. Okay? And we can know that it's working because we have an indirect advantage. If we use some solutions such as HDIV in combination with HATEOAS, we have an additional advantage. That is, we really know that we are HATEOAS. I mean, all the URLs that we are creating, they are dynamic. They are not constant URLs. So if the application works, it means that it's really HATEOAS application. Okay? If we are not controlling that and we don't create dynamic URLs, we don't actually know that we are really HATEOAS. Maybe we are creating HATEOAS definitions in the server side, but maybe the client is using a direct URL because they know the URL, and maybe it has not been changed in some months, so they can use directly. But in the day that you change it, you have a problem because you are not sure that it's real HATEOAS. Okay, so this is an indirect advantage that we have using this kind of approach. And that's it. So if you have any questions or comments.
Yeah, what does the automation mean for you? So when you say automation,
Yes.
what does it mean?
The validation part. I mean, if you are using a Spring HATEOAS, you actually, with the new support, you are defining formally the links and the form composition. Okay, this is inside the default programming model in REST. The part that you don't have is the validation part. Okay, so you have to handle this data, these definitions, and implement this validation. That's the part that we automate. So if you want to, just a comment, if you want to review it, you can review as well the GitHub pull request if you are interested in the field. So you can comment as well. So we need your support if you are interested on that as well. So tell us any comments on that. Yeah.
Do you plan or have you implemented or are you planning to implement some kind of a fallback? Because I could imagine this directive to be used for, let's say, actual valid values, but in some cases there could be a default or a fallback if the provided value is not valid. Do you have any plan for that?
I don't know if I have understood. You see, to define, we have a feature, I don't know if it's the question, we have a feature to define not the values that they can use. We can provide a URL to get the values from another part. I don't know if I have answered the question, but you are talking about the default values in the case that you don't define. I don't understand, sorry. Yes, yes, yes.
I could imagine that in some, let's say, not so strict cases,
Yeah.
there's a list of valid values.
Yes.
But if the user doesn't provide the valid value, there's a fallback value.
A default value, you mean? Okay. It's not included, I think, in the current specification, but it could be an additional feature that we can add, a default value for each field. Yeah, I don't think that it's included in the HAL forms. I'm not sure about it, but it's just an additional property. So we can check it with Mike, and if they agree, we can include that. I think it's very easy to include it.
Is it possible to send 2,000 error code instead of 500 or 503 codes to the customer, to the client, instead of saying what is wrong, saying everything okay, you did a good job, send the request, but I'm not going to consider it.
You mean?
Yeah. Instead of sending error codes.
Yes. You can. Well, now it's not, but in many cases, in that case, you don't want to send this information to the client. You don't want to say to the client, yes, 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 yes. Yes. We have, in the case of APIs, we have to review it in the Spring, in the MVC architecture. We have a custom error handle, so you can customize which is the behavior. In that case, it's on top of Spring HATEOAS, okay, using the pull request that we have done. Okay, but you can customize it. It's like it's just we have to add an interface to customize the behavior when you detect an error. So if you don't want to tell to the client which is the specific error.
I think I don't even want to tell the customer that I'm running HDIV
Yeah, sure. Yes. But in that case, you have to customize the output. Okay. And the way, basically, we have in the MVC option, we have also the way to randomize all the data from HDIV, so you don't know anything. You just get some parameter names, but you don't know in the code that you are using HDIV. So in that case, in that example, we send the whole definition of the solution, but the solution could be to customize this output to hide the real implementation of the solution. Okay? That is something that is common, that we hide which is the specific version that we are using in the servers, because as you know, if you have some vulnerable common library, and the people know your library, you are vulnerable, sure. So it's a good idea to include it. Yeah. Okay, it's finished. So thank you.